Comeback. That's the word Ferrari wanted to use after the Imola Grand Prix. In Formula One, anything can often happen, even on circuits where overtaking is difficult. That was more or less the hope for the Prancing Horse, considering that the pace shown in the second free practice session, with a heavy fuel load, appeared almost on par with McLaren's. In front of their home crowd, trying was the least they could do. Let's move on to the race report. The sun is shining on the banks of the Santerno River. Everything is ready for this 7th round of the World Championship, with one thing still to figure out: what type of tires the Ferrari drivers will use. They might start on harder compounds to stretch the first stint as much as possible, for example, trying to differentiate the strategy between the two red cars. We'll find out shortly. Meanwhile, we note a smiling Frederic Vasseur on the starting grid. Ferrari thus shows up with the weapon of race pace and the need for a careful strategy. The different start compared to the top teams, mediums for Charles Leclerc, hards for Lewis Hamilton, is a calculated risk, an attempt to capitalize on a longer first stint and gain an advantage during the pit stop phase. Engines are fired up. The two SF-25 cars take off with the expected setup. A useful choice to gather valuable data on tire performance. The Monegasque benefits from better grip off the line, while Lewis, despite a better getaway, gets stuck in traffic and loses a position. Leclerc, instead, gains one. The pace is there, but traffic is heavy and the DRS trains, as usual, complicate every overtaking move. Hamilton takes 3 full laps to get past Gabriel Bortoleto and return to 12th. Charles Leclerc, in the meantime, breezes past Hadjar and enters the points zone. From the pit wall comes confirmation: good pace, temperatures under control, management can wait. But ahead of him is Stroll, slower but hard to pass. The Monegasque driver gets frustrated, radio chatter starts. On lap 8, the plan changes. It's time for plan B. Charles Leclerc is called into the pits, clean air and a clear track ahead, the perfect chance to push. He comes back out in 17th, but with room to set the pace. Hamilton, on the other hand, extends his first stint. The goal is clear: a shorter final stint on fresh tires. Leclerc makes the most of the favorable window. In just a few laps, he gains 5 places thanks to others pitting. Up ahead, he finds Oscar Piastri's flying McLaren, also on hards. Car 16's times are 0.2 faster than Verstappen's. Meanwhile, Lewis Hamilton goes wheel-to-wheel with Antonelli, who has no DRS and gets by, placing himself in P6. The Ferrari move is working. After the pit stop cycle, Charles is ahead of Russell, Sainz, Alonso, and Stroll. Lap 20, Leclerc is told to start managing tires, while Hamilton is advised to adjust engine maps to stabilize the rear of his car. Shortly after, car 16 catches the group. First target, Yuki Tsunoda. He gets past him in 2 laps but loses 2 seconds. Meanwhile, the Hamilton garage is already talking about Plan C. Charles Leclerc vents over the radio. Same story as before: traffic. But this time, Colapinto pits and Oliver Behrman doesn't resist. The Monegasque climbs to P9 with Hülkenberg in his sights. Meanwhile, Hamilton defends P6 from Piastri's McLaren but has to give up the position to the Australian. Leclerc also gets past Hülkenberg but loses more precious time. Ahead of him, Hamilton begins to struggle on hards that have now done over 30 laps. Then luck swings. Ocon stops, safety car on track. Lewis can pit at the perfect moment, while his teammate vents again. The rivals timed it right. He too comes in to fit hards but loses 4 positions and ends up 10th. Lewis is now 7th, but Charles reacts immediately. In a single lap, he easily gets past Stroll, and then does the same with the other Aston Martin, former Ferrari driver Fernando Alonso. The pace is there, once again, very strong. Hamilton is flying too, so much so that he passes Kimi Antonelli and Isack Hadjar, and grabs 5th place. Now it's Charles's turn, but the comeback, as often happens, starts 1 lap too late. Indeed, not without effort, he eventually succeeds and takes 6th. Just over 2 seconds ahead of him is his teammate in the other Italian car. About 20 laps remain in the Grand Prix, and the most realistic goal for both Ferraris now seems to be overtaking Alexander Albon's Williams. The second twist comes on lap 45. Kimi is forced to retire, and Hamilton takes the chance to change tires again, fitting a new set of hards. Charles also intended to change tires, and a long heated radio argument with Brian Bozzi begins. He asks if softs are available but can't pit right away because Lewis is in front. The following lap it would have been possible, but in the end, the stop isn't made. Now Lewis is in 7th, while Charles gains 4th thanks to Albon's pit stop. A flurry of radio instructions while the safety car takes its time, slowing down the action on track. When it finally leaves, the Monegasque attacks Norris for third, but unsuccessfully. Same for Lewis, who can't capitalize on the moment to pass Russell's Mercedes. A tough battle ignites between the two because Lewis clearly has more pace. Finally, with 7 laps to go, he gets past and chases down Albon, who is now strongly pressuring Leclerc. The Monegasque defends as best he can from the Thai British driver's attack. The real effort comes just as Lewis joins the fray. 3 cars, 1 position up for grabs. With 4 laps to go, Alex Albon tries again, but Leclerc holds firm with the determination of someone who knows he has to defend every inch. Hamilton takes advantage and passes Alexander, then also gets by Charles, who lets him through, knowing his worn tires won't allow him, unlike his teammate, to aim for a more ambitious goal, the podium, chasing Piastri. But the next lap brings a cold shower. Brian Bozzi orders the Monegasque driver to give the position back to Albon, as his defense was deemed too aggressive and could incur a penalty. In the end, Hamilton doesn't manage to pass the McLaren, but he's very pleased. He greets the Italian crowd warmly. 4th place, not bad for someone who started 12th. He also praises the team for a job well done. Charles Leclerc, instead, is far from happy. Luck turned its back on him, even though Ferrari's comeback met expectations. Without a doubt, if he had also pitted, he could have at least finished ahead of Albon. A tough weekend to interpret for the Scuderia, which showed truly strong race pace. That's why the real regret is qualifying, because today the red car was really flying. From the nightmare of qualifying to smiles after the race, but with the awareness that the road to the real goal is still long. Imola was a roller coaster of emotions for Ferrari, managing to fight back from outside the top 10 to finish with a solid 4th place for Lewis Hamilton and 6th for Charles Leclerc. On a day that demanded a show of pride and an attacking race, the Italian side did indeed show its claws, both in terms of race pace and especially strategy. In this area, Ferrari has clearly made progress in recent races, as seen again at Imola. While Charles Leclerc had started with a 2-stop strategy in mind, Ferrari cleverly read the situation during the first stint, taking advantage of Russell's slow pace, keeping the pack bunched up, to undercut 4 cars in the pits. Hamilton, on the other hand, went for a 1-stop strategy, capitalizing on the virtual safety car's arrival at a favorable moment. Initially, the team considered switching to soft tires, but at that point there were still many laps remaining. Although the softs had shown good durability, the C6 compound would likely have suffered a rapid thermal drop-off, as already seen in Friday practice. True, the car would have been lighter on fuel, but the track was quite hot. Looking back on the weekend, Fred Vasseur acknowledged that the SF-25 tends to perform better in race conditions than over a single lap. While this was a positive sign, he admitted that starting from the back of the grid remained a clear handicap. He noted that, on this occasion, strategy and race developments had allowed Ferrari to finish ahead of teams like Williams, Mercedes, and Aston Martin, but also made it clear that they could not count on such circumstances to consistently overcome the limitations of a difficult qualifying session. Referring to the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, Vasseur observed that Ferrari had likely been faster on race day there too, despite struggling in qualifying and running 2 to 3 tenths behind Verstappen. He emphasized that the team was still missing something in qualifying and needed to improve in that area, while pointing out that their strong race pace was not the result of any miracle solution. He went on to explain that the most challenging part of his role was carrying out a full analysis of performance. He stressed that Ferrari were not yet champions, nor where they aimed to be, and that it was essential to evaluate what was working and what wasn't. Among the positives, he listed the race pace, overall performance, strategies, and execution, all of which he felt had gone very well. However, the weekend's key weakness remained their qualifying form. Vasseur also praised the team's strategists and mechanics, commending their strong performance throughout the race. He felt the team had worked well together, even when managing the position swap between the 2 cars, and said that both the strategy and pit stops were handled excellently. While he expressed satisfaction with Sunday's outcome, he reiterated that Ferrari still had work to do to close the gap on Saturdays. Finally, the team principal expressed gratitude to the fans for their ongoing support, particularly during difficult periods. He recalled leaving the circuit the night before and seeing supporters still cheering with great passion. While it was easy to support a team when they were winning, he said Ferrari deeply appreciated the loyalty shown by their fans even when things were not going their way.